Bam! Welcome back to another video. Another one working on the Mark II here. Got some more mods as the video's title suggests. We're putting some coilovers on. So I will say I was tossing up between whether I do coilovers first or whether I do wheels first. But I went coilovers for a couple of reasons. One, I don't quite know what sort of wheels I want to put on it yet. So rather than making a rash decision, I kind of want to just think about it a little bit. Two, I think I would prefer waiting till the car's already lowered before I get the wheels. I think when you do that, it'll have a much better effect once the wheels go on. It'll look really good. And then finally three, I had to get 4 new tires for the stock wheels because unfortunately the tires it came with had no tread left. So kind of sucks to spend $1,000 on new tires and then immediately get new wheels after a few months anyway. So that's why I'm doing coils. Hopefully I can get wheels by the end of the year, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, let's get into the coilovers. Okay, so as the title of the video says, I got some Shockworks. So there were basically 3 brands that I was tossing up between. I was thinking either of just going cheap and getting some VCs. The reason for that was simply because, like I've said before, because it's a daily drive and I already have the Soarer as the project car, I don't want to spend a ton of money on the Mark II. So it made a little bit of sense to get VCs. Or there was Shockworks for a little bit more, or there was MCA, which was a little bit more again. But basically after reading a whole bunch of forums, and conveniently enough there was a Facebook post like a few weeks ago that was asking the same question, but VCs just don't have the same sort of quality and adaptability that Shockworks and MCA have. Now I found out that Shockworks is actually local to me, so I thought I'd support local and go with Shockworks, and also they're a little bit cheaper than MCA as well. Overall I can say the experience dealing with Shockworks was absolutely excellent. I talked with Chris who works there and he knows a lot about shocks and coils and how to set them up and tune them and all that kind of stuff, and he was real friendly and great to work with. And like I said before, being local is really nice because if I have any problems or if I want them to adjust it, I can literally drive down the road practically and they'll be right there. So anyway, let's get to opening up the coilovers. So you'll also see Neotech on the box as well. They get the dampers made in, I think it's South Korea where Neotech is, so they make the dampers, and then Shockworks assemble them, tune them, set the right damping rates and all that kind of stuff, and choose the springs as well. But they're all assembled here, I believe, in Australia. Okay, got a sticker, always nice. Interesting, it actually comes with a set of gloves, which is kind of cool, and obviously the coilover wrenches or adjustment spanners. Got some hose clamps and some brackets. I'm guessing this is probably for the brake lines, or maybe the ABS lines that might be connected to the strut, so that's handy, that's all included. And then you've got the strut itself. I think this is probably the fronts. Not entirely sure. None of it's preset, but that's fine. Chris basically walked me through what sort of measurements that I should be looking for when I'm installing these for the ride height that I'm looking at doing as well. And got the other set. Starting to think that this might be the front actually, and those are the rear. But I'll have to check that out. Okay, so looking at these a little closer, you can see it's got a nice little kind of boot here over the actual piston, and looking at it, looks like it's a rubber mount top and also a rubber mount bottom. For a daily drive, that's probably okay. I don't think I ever would have gone with pillow ball, but that's fine. So basically, the next step is to take a couple of measurements on the car, jack it up and take some more measurements, and then I can preset some of these heights. Interestingly enough, Shockworks don't recommend having too much preload on the spring, although they also recommend using the spring preload for height adjustment rather than adjusting the kind of droop and travel. Okay, so basically the first step is to take some measurements of the stock ride height. So basically the way I'm going to be doing this, and the way he recommends, you can either measure from here to here, but it might be a little bit better to measure from the base of the rim to the fender, and then basically do that all around the car, and then from there you can jack it up, take some more measurements of the stock droop if you wish, and then remove the wheels, remove the coils, and get ready to install. So basically Chris was explaining what I want to do with the measurements is I want to take the stock ride height, I want to minus how much I want to drop the car, which is about 50 mils, and then I have to add on 50 mils of droop. So that means they cancel out, and basically with the car lifted off and the new coils installed, the wheel height with the droop, with the wheels drooping, should be exactly the same as the ride height right now. So that's just to make sure you've got enough droop and enough travel in the piston, and if I want to lower it further or adjust further, I then basically do that using the pre-tension and the spring adjustment. Also, because the driveway is graded, so it's not quite flat, I'm going to measure all 4 wheels and do them all kind of individually based on their own measurements, just so that they're all going to be exactly the same. Or rather not all the same, but like all accounted for the slight slope of the drive. Okay, so with all 4 wheels measured now, it's time to jack up the car. An interesting to note, once it's jacked up, you can see how much droop the stock shocks have. Looks like it's lifted like a monster truck. But basically, after the new coils go on, when it's lifted up off the ground like this, it should look like it did when it was on the stock strut on the ground. That's how much droop it should be. So just took a couple more measurements. Interesting to note, the front has 100 mils of droop and the rear has 80 mils of droop. So we're going to be reducing both of those down to 50 for the new coils. Okay, so with the wheels off, jumping in here on the front left, you can see the original shock up in there. So it looks like it should be a pretty easy process, and I was right about the brake line being attached to the shock, so that's on the front. Good to know. I might have to remove the sway bar link, but fronts look like it should be pretty easy, lots of access, so yeah. The rears look like they might be even easier as well, because there's no, it's completely out of the way of the upper arms here. So interesting to note, it looks like it's a bit of a reverse coilover situation here, where the coil's at the bottom and the piston's at the top. But I should be able to just remove maybe this bolt here, unbolt the lower arm from the knuckle, and this whole arm, and maybe the sway bar link as well, but this arm should be easy to get out as well. So one nice thing about the 110s is, unlike the JZX100 chasers where you have to remove the rear seats to access the top of the strut, they've designed it this time so it goes into the boot and all accessible from the boot. Okay, so I've actually almost cooked this one. I hate sway bar link designs where you've got the Allen key that goes in the end of the bolt and then the ratchet on top like that, because inevitably these rust out and then you end up stripping it with the Allen key. So I've almost stripped this one, so I've cleaned it up as best I could, I've lubricated it, and I'm just going to take it very easy because I don't want to strip it because I don't have a replacement sway bar link. Done. About 30 minutes later. Oh man, that was painful. So basically, I've got the stock fronts out, but it was a bit of an effort to do. So what I had to end up doing, I ended up getting that sway bar link off. Took a while, like you saw. I then took the ball joint piece out, so that's out, and then the whole thing just kind of drops around. There's nothing holding that up anymore. So that was all good. Did it the same on the other side. So now just going to remove the rears, and then we can get to the install. Okay, so coming here into the boot, I've just removed these panels a little bit so you can see you access the top of the strut just here, nice and easy, which is good. And then down under here, it should be as simple as removing this and removing this, and that whole arm should be able to move fairly smoothly. The sway bar is quite thin, so I don't think it's going to be an issue. That one should be able to just come out nice and easy. Luckily as well on the rear here, if I do need to disconnect the sway bar link, this is just a regular bolt that can be undone nice and easy. Okay, so it is a little difficult to access it with this piece in the way, but it is possible. So, and they're also really tight, so I'm just literally okay, got the rears out as well. So now it's basically just set the new ones at the correct droop and install them in. And then I'll probably take it for a quick drive to let it settle a little bit before I just ride home. It's all in, it's all installed. Everything's mostly tight, but I'll have to come back and double check all the bolts by hand just to make sure. And I've roughly got it in the ballpark for the right droop. So basically now what I have to do is put all the wheels on and do up the lugs properly, and then measure the droop and make sure it's where I want it to be, and then it's basically lower the car down and see how it looks. I'll take it for a quick drive just around the block a few times, just to let everything settle, and then I'll come back here and measure the height and see if it's where I want it. Okay, so I've got all the wheels on and I've measured, and they're all pretty much bang on except this front left one, which is about 5mm too high. So just going to drop that one back a little bit, and then to tighten all the bolts to make sure they're all good, and then put the wheels back on and drop it down. Okay, so first impressions, it's back down on the ground. The front is about 30mm lower than stock, and the rear is about 50mm lower than stock. But you can see I can probably go even lower still on the rear. But basically now I'm just going to take it for a drive, see if it settles any further. It is late afternoon, so I'm not sure if I'll readjust today. Maybe tomorrow or next weekend I might adjust further if I want to lower the rear or the fronts even further. Okay, so it's a new day. Unfortunately I had to stop filming pretty abruptly, but that's okay. Basically, after I got it off the stands, put the wheels on, etc., I took it for a quick little drive just to make sure everything was kind of fine and not clunking and making noises. And when I came back, the springs had settled as well. It only took one short drive to settle the springs, which was good. And it dropped a very even 10mm on all four sides, so that was really cool. Like it was an even drop and I didn't have to do anything. The front is lower than the rear, so now when we're talking about just adjusting the height for where I actually want the car to drive at, I'll show you now. So the front here is like a one finger or just under a one finger gap. It's a bit hard to see because the stock wheel is so inset, but basically the rear is about a 2 finger gap. Don't know if you'll be able to see that. And you can tell as well just by looking at the angle of the car that the front is slightly lower. So I'm going to raise the front up a little bit, just because I'm pretty sure we're not legal height under here either, because that was the other thing. That's the other thing, this is a daily, so I do want to keep it legal so that I don't have to worry about the cops or anything like that. So I will raise the front up a little bit, and hopefully we get 100mm clearance under the car, and should make going over speed bumps a little bit easier as well. Okay, so I've got it jacked up, got the wheels off, so I'm just going to raise it up about 10 or 15 mils. So roughly I'll have just under a 2 finger gap on the front. One thing I do want to say, actually, these black ones here are the ones that came with the Shockworks coils, and these silver ones are the BC ones that came with the Soarer coils. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, this small one from the Shockworks, it slips off. I don't know, I might not be able to show it. You might not be able to see that, but I'm guessing the steel is too soft and it's kind of like burred over, and now it doesn't hold. So I have had to revert to using the BC one for the smaller locking collar. Okay, so raised it up. The front's up 15 mils now, so you can see it no longer has the kind of tucked look on the front, which is a bit annoying because I did like it, but it should be much better to drive for the daily now. I shouldn't have problems getting out of my driveway or scraping over speed bumps. The car is now level, so the front's not lower than the rear. I've also stiffened the front damping up a touch just to help with speed bumps, or rather coming off speed bumps and not bottoming out. So that's pretty much it for this video. Coilover install was relatively easy and straightforward. Certainly the Shockworks coils were easy to work with, and there was no major problems really, other than the sway bar linkage bolts were a little bit hard to get off. Other than that, it was really smooth sailing. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. The next Mark II video should hopefully either be the wheels, which is pretty exciting, but that may be a little bit later this year, I don't know, or I've ordered a air intake kit, which is going to be part of another video as well. So yeah, again, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.